I got to tell you, there's two reasons I love Tarantino. First off, most people don't understand the reason Tarantino's successful is because of Sally Mickey. You know Sally Mickey, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
She's my hero, and it's too bad that she's no longer with us. And you brought up Django. If I'm not mistaken, that might have been the first movie without her. But what I love about Tarantino is name another director who writes, produces, and directs his stuff. Spielberg doesn't. Scorsese doesn't.
And
none of them
acts
do.
in it.
Yes.
And appears in it. And
no one else does that in the history. Talk about your
complete
experience.
ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah, complete ownership. I mean, his heart and soul's in every script, from Kill Bill to Django to Jackie Brown, you name it. So long story short, it's 2000, whatever it was, let's say 10, 11, whatever. I do this audition, a self-tape. When they started, instead of us going to Warner Brothers to audition, they said, just record yourself doing this scene. And they don't give you much in context. They give you just a little bit. This situation, you're a slave, and here are the lines, and you're talking to this guy, and yada yada. I send it in. A few days later, they say you got a call back, so you got to go into the office. Normally, when you get a call back, it's just you go to the casting director and you do the scene. They work on it a little bit, and then you wait to see if you booked it. Well, with this callback, they were like, you're going to right off Cahuenga Boulevard in L.A. The callback is at Quentin Tarantino's office. You're going to read with Quentin Tarantino. I was like, what? Holy shit. I just couldn't believe it. So I get in there, and we essentially, he takes 20 minutes. I've never had this happen before. He sits me down opposite him at the table, and he takes 20 minutes and illustrates why he wrote the movie, what the movie means to him, what the soundscape may be like. I mean, it's almost like he was pitching like I'm a studio, and he's pitching the movie to me to produce it. But he really wanted me to have more information so I could give him a good read. So, we sit down and we read the scene. He's playing the character that he played in the movie, which is an Australian slave wrangler. And I'm playing one of the slaves in the cart who's responding to Jamie Foxx and him and yada yada. And we do it a few times. And we shook hands when we got done. He told me he liked my read. He thought I was great for it, yada yada. And now we get to the hard part of LA, which is you come out of an audition for Quentin Tarantino at his height, for a major motion picture starring Jamie Foxx, right?
Right.
And everybody else in that movie. And then you don't hear anything else. For whatever reason, you didn't book it.
Crushing.
You just didn't book it.
Crushing.
And then you go see the movie a year and a half later, and you're like, fuck, no.
So was it the scene where they killed his character? Is that the scene you're talking about? Because from what I understand, he wasn't even supposed to play that role. I think somebody else was.
Oh, really? Now,
I don't know.
When we read for it, he was reading for that role. He had his Aussie accent down and everything.
It's a bad Aussie accent, but it's Tarantino, whatever.
Yeah.
I recently saw a meme on Facebook. It says, just remember that Quentin Tarantino wrote a scene where Selma Hayek puts his foot in his character's mouth and he cast himself. I'm like, I never thought about it like that. That's kind of weird, man. But no, Tarantino. Yeah. But I mentioned Sally Mickey earlier. For people who don't know, Sally Mickey was his editor. So from Reservoir Dogs all the way through, I think Django Unchained was either his last movie with her or her first movie without her. She was the editor. And after Reservoir Dogs, I've heard Tarantino say that he would film to her edit. And so they were very, he's called her his only true collaborator, which I think is high praise.
Guys like that know Tarantino. Guys like that, when they're shooting, even for TV, it's the same. When you're shooting a big whatever, the director's constantly thinking about setting it up for the post-shoot.
Right.
When they got to cut it all together. How's it going to match? What kind of shot over this shoulder, blah, 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 to make it easier for those guys, too, to tell the story. Because you got to remember, the editor is just as much of a storyteller as an actor or director. I mean, the way they cut it, the way they show your reaction instead of mine when you say that important shit changes the story, So you got to have somebody who knows what they're doing.
A couple years ago, my wife got me a box set of Tarantino's films, and one of the extras was outtakes, and there was so many outtakes where when somebody would flub a line, they knew it wasn't usable. They would look in the camera and say, "Hi, Sally." Like there's pictures of Kurt Russell, just like bloodied up. Oh, hey, Sally. And I was Sally. Like, you know what? If I'm an editor, that's just great. That's just great. So, Tarantino, have you ever auditioned for? He's obviously the biggest director you've auditioned for, right?
In person,
yeah.
I auditioned for tons of others. Most of it right now, and the landscape in LA is just all self-tape coming out of COVID. So you just send it in. If you book it, they'll let you know, and then you meet them when you get to set or something like that. But for then, that was the biggest. At that point, that was the biggest for sure.